Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Michelle and today we have a very special guest, Dave. Say hi.
Hey guys, how are you? Thanks for having me on the show. Happy to be here.
Woo. We are going to compare our two types, which are two of the most opposite types that could possibly exist. I'm sorry before if you were joining us in the original stream, that one broke and was not working, so we had to try again. So this is test number 2, and can you guys let us know if you can hear both of us just fine? It seems like the chat is at a decent less delay than it was before. But we're going to go ahead and actually compare our two types, and hopefully this time you can actually hear what Dave was saying.
That would be good, right?
Because otherwise, I'm just here, laughing, and nothing ever is being good cover of the sound of silence. Wait. Okay, good. Yeah, I saw a little clip of the video, and it was awful. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, great. So we're gonna try this again. What we're gonna do is we are going to answer a few questions, and once we've answered those questions, we're going to kind of compare and contrast our answers, and then at the end we're going to open up everything to a Q&A at the end for anything you might want to ask either of us. We're going to be using a lot of objective personality typing terms, so masculine, feminine, the different animals, and we're going to try to do our best to explain what those mean, at least generally, before we go into depth using that jargony language. And we're going to try not to use too much jargon for those of you who don't know OPS, but we will be using regular old MBTI terms as well, so like introverted sensing, extroverted sensing, etc. So hopefully, everything makes sense, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments and we'll do our best to answer. There's a little bit of a delay from the comments, so just know you can ask a question. We might not see it right away, but we will try to get to it. We will try not to forget any of your answers. And I think I have a way to highlight your chats into the stream.
In the live comments section on this stream right there.
Okay, great. That? Yep, and I can show somebody's ooh.
Oh, that's cool. All right. Awesome.
I can show someone's chat. Yeah. All right. So I have that option. So when I come to answer your question, I'll just throw it up here in the middle of the video so we can answer your question and also tell everybody what we're answering. I'm really excited to use this platform. It's way easier than the one I was attempting to use before.
Thank God for Benjamin.
Thank God somebody has done this before.
Thank you, man. You're most helpful.
Yes, Benjamin has a wonderful channel where he interviews people from the OPS system, where he talks exclusively about what their personality is, how they found it. He asks a lot of really great questions. There's a lot of really great information to learn, and you get to see a lot of different people with a lot of different types. Benjamin himself is a TISE, right?
He's almost the same as my type, except he has last third, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Don't say anything dumb, or it might go up on the chat, just as a disclaimer. But with everything said, I feel a lot more comfortable now that we got that awful one out of the way. So hopefully hopefully that was good that we had it. I'm going to take it down after we're done with this video, so that monstrosity is no longer on the internet.
Yeah, get rid of that
one. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and answer those questions. So the first question, well, actually, let me give a little backstory before we get into the questions. Dave and I have been working on this for a little while. We've been talking, trying to really delve into the differences between especially introverted feeling and introverted thinking, because they do work very similarly, and a lot of people have confusion as to which one they are. A lot of people think they're INFP or IST, or INTP or all kinds of things. So hopefully this video will help you guys see the differences because we definitely do not have the same judgment axes. So you will definitely be able to see the difference, I hope, through these next few questions. So the questions that we've picked out should hopefully highlight the differences between our judgment axes. So without further ado, let's actually ask the question. The first question that we are going to answer is, what makes a good concept good?
Okay, before I answer the question, shout out to Benjamin. I think you just joined the channel. We gave you a shout out earlier, and I think you missed it. But anyway, thanks again, man. It's working. So yeah, appreciate it. Oh yeah. So what makes a concept a good concept? Yeah. So for me, that's two things. The concept has to be logically consistent, something we can verify. Yeah, logically, like the way you would, verify something with like a mathematical proof or something like that. It has to be verifiable in reality somehow. If you think of it like this, like if you were trying to come up with like a physics concept, right? You would have like a formula for that concept, right? And the formula would be itself logically consistent, right? Just like 2 + 2 = 4. That in and of itself is logically consistent, right? And it's like self-evident. But you have to take it to the next step to make sure that it works in the physical world. So you'd have to take that physics formula, the physics concept, and you'd have to test it to make sure that the laws of nature correspond to the formula that you laid out. So that's the two things. It has to be basically logically consistent, and you have to be able to prove it in the sensory. So and what I'm defining a good concept is basically a true concept. Is it true? Can we use it? Is it something that really that we can use to model reality or use as a platform to build more knowledge for ourselves? So yeah, that's my answer for that.
Yeah, so I think you just showcased your top 2 functions pretty well.
It was all TI there, baby. Yeah.
And SE. No, you're SE too, or extroverted sensing, because you're like, it has to be verifiable, it has to be true in reality. It can't just be conceptual. It has to have some kind of grounding, which I find very fascinating.
Yeah, there was no mentioning of impact either to people either. Yeah. There's no SE in that thing. Right?
So my answer is going to be a little bit different. So what I would consider a good concept is one that has practical application, one that can be used, but doesn't necessarily have to be, I don't know, I wouldn't use the word verifiable necessarily. I think that a concept can be good even if it's interesting. I think that there's a lot of like philosophical concepts that may or may not have any practical application or any grounding in reality, but I still would consider those good concepts too, because they get you thinking, and they get you to go outside of yourself and your realm and think bigger than that. And I think that makes a really good concept too. So it might not have a real life application or a necessarily immediately applicable application, but it's still getting you thinking. It's still interesting. It's still going to start conversation. And finally, I really like concepts that get conversation going. Because I like to expand my knowledge, and good concepts are how you do that. So I like concepts that will get you talking, even if the concept is not true, even if the concept has no grounding in reality. I think that it could still be good because it could spark interesting conversation that leads us to something that is true. So even if it isn't necessarily true, I would still say it could be a good concept nonetheless.
Yeah, so it's like a very results oriented, right? If the concept results in something good, then it's a good concept, which is definitely like just as you could definitely argue that, right? You could argue it like, let's look at the result. If the concept results in good positive things or any sort of building or anything like that, then it's good. Or you can look at it just essentially, is it something that's true, right? So it's like, I feel like both ways are valid ways of looking at it, but just apples and oranges almost, right?
Yeah. And believe me, guys, we've already talked about what our answers are going to be ahead of time. We're not purposely trying to to make our answers more different. These are what we originally answered with, and we're just reiterating it verbally. Yeah, exactly. I'm judging it on the potential. Hey, Charles. Hey, everyone. Welcome. I see that we've got a whole lot more people watching. Welcome, welcome.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, awesome.
So now that we've answered this first question, we're going to go into a little bit more of an in-depth question. Hold on, I got to remember which one's next. I guess either one is fine. So let's go into a question that I'm really interested to see his answer on. But that would be, how do you determine if you want to be friends with somebody and how close you will be as friends with somebody?
Okay, I'm going first, right? Okay. God, this one was so hard. Like, it's not, it's not really a difficult question, right? Or it shouldn't be difficult, you know what I mean? But like, I was like, I don't even really know. Like, I don't really think like that, right? I'm not spending time thinking about that sort of thing, right? So it was a tough one. For me, I haven't put much thought into it, and I don't really control the process of friendship. Like, for me, it's just like, I'm willing to be friends with pretty much anyone. Like, I'm not really that selective unless they like do something malicious, I guess. Like, I'm pretty open to it. So like, so the friendship will get closer or will happen kind of based on the other person a lot. Like me, I'm not really focusing on that so much, right? Like, for me, it's more like, say I meet somebody and, we get along okay. And then they ask me to hang out, and then we hang out, and we hang out more and hang out more. And then eventually it evolves into like a friendship, right? But I just kind of let that happen. Like, I don't try to force that or try to make it happen. And I don't necessarily go looking for friendships, but like if the opportunity presents itself, yeah. So it kind of really depends on how often they ask me to hang out and how often I say yes to that. And that's kind of depends on like what kind of mood I'm in, how much do I like them right off the bat. But it's a very hands-off process that it just kind of happens. I don't really have a way of controlling that.
So to boil down your answer, you're basically saying that you really don't put much, if any, thought into whether or not you want to be friends with somebody. You just kind of, it either happens or it doesn't happen.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, yeah, and I'm not super picky either. So that's also, yeah, it's just, I guess it's more or less kind of SCTI in a way. Like, I don't like to control processes like that, especially FE stuff. Like, just leave me out of that. I don't know how that stuff works, so I'd leave it alone, right?
So would you say that that you make a lot of friendships with this like policy of like letting people come to you, or does it really do you just try to be yourself, and then however many people want to be friends with you, they want to be friends with you, and
that's exactly it. I'm just who I am, and then if somebody expresses interest, then we usually end up friends. So like, the nice thing is like I usually end up with really good friends. Like, I don't have like a huge like a lot of close friends, but the close friends I do have are just amazing, and like we just really fit naturally with one another, because I guess our friendship really did evolve sort of naturally, right? It just kind of happened. And it's not something that I'm controlling so much. I'm not like looking out for like, oh, I should be friends with this person. Oh, this person's cool, I should be friends with that. It just, and I feel like when you let things happen in general, you tend to have the best sort of results when you just kind of let it go, naturally go. Don't try to force it this way or that way. Yeah, I don't know. That makes sense.
I think it did.
Okay.
It's hard to imagine processing like that and like looking at friendships like that. I can respect it. I definitely wouldn't do the same, but I can respect it, and I think that there's a certain level of integrity that comes with letting your friendships happen that way, where you're kind of just letting it be and just letting the connections develop naturally instead of like trying to have any kind of control over that. What happens if like you start becoming friends with somebody, and then is there something that they could do that would make you not want to be friends with them anymore?
Yeah, totally. Like, it's I feel like deciders in general, we have all these tripwires that you don't know about, and if you step on one, then like it's over with. You know what I mean? It's kind of, it's really bad. Like, I'm working on it, but like really there's like little buttons that I have, and if you push that button, like, we're done. until you say hi to me the next day, then I forget all about it. So it's like, like I can't really hold a grudge, but I do get like, I don't want to be in this friendship anymore. I do like that very easily, but like what specifically does that? That's hard to say. I don't really know. I just get upset about like just stuff sometimes. I don't know. If I feel like they did something malicious, like with intent to hurt, then I'm. But that rarely happens. Like rarely people are doing things to you intentionally to hurt you, right? Sometimes it comes off that way, but it's not usually so.
So Benjamin actually asked a relevant question that I'd like you to answer. I'm going to get to everyone's question. We're going to have a Q&A at the end. So if your question isn't immediately relevant when I see it, we'll answer it at the end. But Benjamin's, his question was, is this the same that you would say about like a romantic relationship?
Actually, yeah, I think it's pretty similar. Well, no, like, okay, so in a relation, like I'll go after someone that like I'm into, right? But not probably as much as most guys will. Like I always feel like, I think it's just with inferior FE. I feel like I can't navigate that so well, and I'd rather than just like initiate it, right? But I will like try to some degree. But I really have this big fear of just being a creep or being too aggressive, or whatever, and so that really holds me back a lot. But as far as it naturally sort of evolving, I'd say it's pretty much the same process.
That's interesting because like my conception of an ISTP would be somebody who would not be afraid to do something like that, who would just be like confident and just show up and like however they react,
we react. Look a lot more confident than we are.
Okay.
I don't know why we look, but we're not. Like we're just as nervous as everyone else. Yeah.
I think maybe it's your stoicism comes into play. So like your stoicism comes off as like being really confident, but in the reality, you guys are just like your minds are going a million miles per hour.
We're soft on the inside for sure. I think I don't know. It's I understand though. Yeah, we come off more confident, and we don't even know that we're seen that way. That's the other weird thing. We don't know that we think people can see like how scared we are and how nervous we are. That's the other weird thing. Like it's.
But in reality, there's like no emotion coming off when you guys are just sitting there.
there's some. It's not a lot, but so.
When you're looking at their faces, you have to be ready to look for the very subtle changes in their faces. I'll try to be quick about my answer because I want this to be more of a focus on the ISTP.
Okay.
But how I would choose a friend is much more complicated than that. For me, I feel like friendship goes through a number of levels of tests and like seeing how much trust I can give to somebody or how much I can't give to them. So I'll be acquaintances with anyone, and I'll use that word freely. I can be acquaintances with absolutely anybody. Like if we talk, we have a good conversation, immediately we're acquaintances, I like you. And it takes a lot for me to maybe dislike somebody, but to let them closer than acquaintance takes something more. And so that something more is just like the kind of conversations we can have. I can have a conversation with anybody, but can I get close to them? Can I get to know them? Can I learn who they are? That's what will let me get closer to them and let me decide if that's somebody that I want to be closer to. Is this somebody that I think is going to be helpful for me to be around or harmful for me to be around? Because when I was younger, I used to just be friends with anybody who would be friends with me. And I've gotten like nipped in the butt for that quite a few times. And so this is kind of like a reaction to that. I take a lot more time to consider if it's going to be good for me to be in that kind of relationship. And then it comes to like, how much can I trust them? So I will give people snippets of information, and I'm very careful about how much information I give to people now. So I will start off with maybe like something small, and I'll see if they tell anybody else. And if they do tell somebody else, I know, okay, I didn't tell them that they could tell somebody. Maybe what I said, maybe they thought it wasn't too big of a deal to tell somebody else. Okay, I'll give them a second test, and I'll tell something a little bit deeper, a little bit more like personal, or something that maybe I wouldn't want other people to know, but I'm okay with people knowing if that ends up being the case. And if they break my trust the second time, we're done. I'm not going to do that a third time because I have been around people that have broken my trust and told things that I wish nobody knew. So now I'm very guarded about like the very close personal things. So there's very few people who like really know me fully. And I try to be open and honest with everybody, but what kinds of things I'm open and honest about really depends on how close I've let them through all these basically tests.
Yeah, that's wow. So like, it's really smart actually. The way you give them a little bit of information and see what.
Yeah, it tests.
I feel like you've thought about this a lot. Like this has been a really important thing for you. Is it true that like I actually don't really know how to explain this, but is it a very like friendship is a very FI related thing, right? Do you feel like when you form a bond with someone, you kind of associate your FI with them, or you take them into your FI in a way? Like, does that make sense?
I think that FI works a little bit differently than that. I think what you're asking about is the SI factor, like whether or not I get that kind of like bond in that way. But FI is more like, how much distance you have from somebody, how close you are, you can judge that really easily. And I think as you get older, you develop that more and more, like that acute awareness of how close you are. I was burned pretty bad by somebody in middle school a couple of times. I moved several times when I was younger, and I moved when I was in between 7th and 8th grade. And I got a whole new group of friends, and I was burned by several of them in different ways. And I think that changed who I was. And then it happened more in high school. And I think after so many times, you like have to learn from what's happening, and you just have to take it and adapt to it. And it probably just means that I'm too protective over certain things, but I just want to have people that I can trust. And I don't even care if like there's somebody that I can call and they'll be there on a dime. Like that's not what I expect from a friend. I expect like emotional honesty and truth in that regard. And that's really like what matters to me. Like I don't care if they're gonna come save me if I have some kind of like dire need. That's not what I expect from anybody. Which I found that a lot of people do expect that, but that's just. Yeah. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. No, and then more. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and then more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of FI what I just threw out there. So the next question I am really interested in as well is, if you could change one thing about society, what would you change?
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't, well, to preface the answer, like, I don't really have any interest in changing society. I feel like society is like a natural, organic, evolving process and it has so many moving parts and so many moving like variables and things like that. I don't know what kind of like, my effect on it, I don't know what kind of end result it's going to have, right? Like I don't know if trying to think that I know what's best for society and then moving it this way or that way is going to necessarily produce a good result. And I feel like those sort of processes are on their own improving and getting better. And so like I don't really have much interest in changing it. But for the sake of the question, I think open and honest communication, more so than what we have now. With everything, with emotions or with your values, with ideas, all of it. Because I feel like most misunderstandings and most conflict is coming from a misunderstanding, not understanding what the other person wants or what they're feeling or what they're thinking, and them, misinterpreting you as well. I think if we really understand and know anyone perfectly, we won't have a conflict with them because we'll get it, we'll understand, and we'll have empathy for them, and we'll be able to work together. And I feel like communication in general for the human race has been like the reason we are where we're at the moment, right? It's like I heard this today actually on a Shade video, but like a single human is a stupid human. You know what I mean? Like the reason that we have the brains that we have is from communication, and from our own language and that sort of thing. And that's compounded with each member of the tribe that we have, right? And so, yeah, so I think communication is I would change. Nothing should be taboo. Nothing should be off topic. Everything, we should be fully comfortable with being transparent with one another and expect understanding from the other person.
So there's a couple of things that I wanted to unpack about what you said. And the first part is the first half of your answer, which was you're like, I don't really have an answer part.
Yeah.
You said that you had no interest in changing society. And even if you did, maybe it wouldn't even, what was the second? And even if you did, what did you say? I thought you said something like along those lines.
Wait, so sorry, restate that. Sorry.
You said you didn't want to change society, and what was your reason again? Can you say that again?
Oh, because I feel like processes like society are evolving and changing on their own, and I feel arrogant to think that I know where it should go or what should be changed, and I can't predict the result of my pushing on it will do. And it's a lot to expect of yourself to do something like that, right? You're one person, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because that's one of my fears is that if I do impact society, which is actually something I do want to do, I do want to change society because I'm that person.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
I know it is a little bit arrogant. I will admit it's a little,
but it's also altruistic, you know.
Yeah. It has elements of that for sure.
Yeah.
I think
there are people who have changed society in a better way. So maybe maybe I'm wrong here, I guess, to some degree, but I don't feel like I'm the person for that. Maybe I'll just say that. Yeah. Maybe there are people like you or maybe other ENFPs out there that have the vision and stuff for that. For me, I'll fix your car, I guess, but I'm not gonna.
I'll fix no, I just think it's interesting because that is something that I fear is that even if I do cause some kind of change and there are changes that have gone through in the past in society on a grand scheme that then have negative consequences afterwards. And can you ever fully make a good change for society? That's always a question because it could end up being a bad change, even though you thought it was a good. And I think an example of that is a book by Stephen King. I'm going to spoil the ending, but basically this guy goes back in time and stops JFK from dying. But then the world has an even worse World War III than ever would have been expected. The whole planet was, destroyed by radiation. And I think that it's true that you don't really know what's going to happen if you stop something or if you change society in some way. There could be unforeseen negative consequences that are maybe worse than a different option. And as a single human being, it's impossible to really know what that outcome is going to be. But then the second part that you were talking about is on communication and making sure that there is good communication, which I would really like to see that too, where we can just talk about anything and there not really be any problems with that. But I still think even with open communication, there's something that you're disregarding, which is emotion. Because even with open communication, people are going to have emotions around that. And even if they did talk about the emotions, that's not always going to resolve things. And I think it would make society better that we're communicating more, but I don't know if it would necessarily solve all the problems, because I still think that people are going to have reactions to it. There's still going to be people who don't. There's this one movie, it's got Ricky Gervais, and he lies in a world of people that only tell the truth. And I think that's a good example of, what could happen is there would be one person who would take advantage. I think there's always going to be people who take advantage. Maybe I'm taking away from what you're saying. I'm sorry.
No, like that. But no, it's reasonable, I think. Yeah, it's hard to know what kind of effect that would have on society and where that would take it.
Yeah.
That's just what came to me and what I think. Because I'm thinking of it in terms of FE a lot of times, right? I'm thinking of it in terms of okay, what are my problems? Harmony and conflict and that sort of thing. Oh wait, if I solve this and everything else is solved, because I don't see any other problems with anything else, right? So.
No, I think that all
makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, if I have a problem, more other people have a problem. Let's fix this bigger problem that's causing it. And I think about that a lot. personally, if I were going to change something about society, I would make or I would encourage people to think about the long-term consequences of their actions. Because I think that that's something that humanity as a whole doesn't do, especially the broader humanity, like the whole of society. We're not thinking about things long term, and we look at people who do as if they're crazy, or like
Like with climate change, would that be kind of weird?
climate change is a good example
Okay.
of one of the things where, you know, we're not thinking about this long term. We're thinking very short term. Capitalism itself is very short term driven, and it's almost impossible to have long term driven capitalism. But if I were to change anything, it would be for people to focus on and care about the long term implications of things, rather than the short term gain. And I know it's hard, like you were saying, like you can't always know like what's going to end up, but you can at least take a little time to consider what may end up happening and use that to inform the decisions of your life. I think that people are afraid that if they do that, they're going to get depressed, or that there's nothing they can do about it anyway, to think big, large scale like that and long term. But that's what voting is all about, right? That's what politics are. And yeah, politicians are corrupt and everything too. There's one thing isn't going to solve humanity's problems.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. But if I had to change one thing, it would be for people to focus on the big picture long term.
Yeah, I mean, if it were that simple, like one thing just change it and solves everything, then we would have already done it by now, right? It would have been easy. I think, yeah. But yeah, no, I see what you're saying. The only thing is like, I don't think it's that people don't think about what their actions are going to do. I think it's just it's not real to them. Like everyone is aware of climate change and, for example, like and how bad it's going to be, but the problem's not staring them in the face yet, and it's not real to them, right? They can imagine it, whatever, but it's not like hitting them in the face yet. But when it does hit them in the face, or I would hope anyway, like when climate change really starts having these like drastic effects, then I think people will get on board. It's just the problem has to be real to them, and that's how do you do that, right? How do you make the problem real to you if it's just something in your imagination, something that for like I think maybe more so for censors that we have problems really putting much stock on the imagination. We're aware of it, but it's not right now. So you know what I mean? But I think what you said is like correct, and it would definitely change the world for the better. I'm just wondering how we would do that, I guess. But not to take away from
No, I think it's funny because just even in how we answered those questions, I think shows a lot about the difference between how we think, like even how we're responding to each other's answers. Sorry, I got distracted by the comments. Even how it's like sometimes I want to like not see it so I can focus on what I'm saying. I mean, now where was I going with all that? I looked at the comments, then my mind started thinking about responding to the comments, and now I've forgotten what I was saying. We were responding to each other's answers.
We respond to it differently somehow.
Yeah, okay, so like you were even saying, like the things that you focus on and the things that I focus on are different, even in the implications of our answers. Like you're saying, okay, yeah, that could work, but this is how people are going to struggle with what you're saying. This is how this isn't going to work. And this is a hurdle that you'd have to overcome. And I'm doing the same thing, except I was focusing on a different area of what you said. You're like, we need more communication. I'm like, well, what about emotions? And when I was saying like, we need to think about the long term, you're like, but we need to make it applicable to real life. And I think that shows a lot of our difference. I just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think the differences are pretty like, I think they stick out like pretty easily. I don't think we need to necessarily explain. It's pretty like obvious how drastically different our answers and approaches are to these things. Yeah. But it's good to talk it out so people can kind of see like where this is coming from too.
Right, and break it down. If we were going to talk in MBTI terms, I think like, or even just in the dichotomy side, like you were very ST and I was very NF in our responses, just even on like the most basic level. And I think that showed. I'm trying to come up with better ways to say this for people who might not have the best understanding of MBTI, but It's just not coming right now. So we'll just answer the next question. And after this question, we'll get into some Q&A. So if you have
one more thing.
go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think we also had planned to go over how we see the other type too. Did you still want to do that maybe after the questions? Or?
Okay, yeah. So we're going to answer one more question, then we're going to talk with something that we were going to do before we asked the questions, and I forgot. I didn't write it down. I did write it down, and I forgot about it, but we're going to do that. Then we'll go into the Q&A. And if you guys asked your questions, I'll pop it up and we'll go over them. So don't worry, I didn't miss them. I'm going to have to do some scrolling to get through to get them, some of the further up ones, but then we'll open it up. Alas, this next question is the most relevant to you guys all here, which is, what do we believe the purpose of MBTI is? Or, yeah, the typology system.
What's going on with are you having issues with the chat right now? Mine's like disappearing.
Oh, no, I don't see any issues.
Okay. Maybe find them. You can tell me what the questions are. Yeah, anyway, the purpose of like typology systems like MBTI. So like to give you like an ST answer, it would depend on who made the system and what right? Like,
no, I mean that does matter. The system
like,
does matter.
Yeah, so there's that, and there's like the purpose that I give it, right? So for me, it's like, I think the same as most people's. I don't think our answer is going to be super different on this one. Maybe a little bit different, but not much. I think it's to understand yourself and to help you understand other people. So for me, it's like it's really good. It's really good knowledge, and it helps you navigate the world. It helps you understand other people, which is really key to, I think, being happy and being comfortable on this world is to be empathetic and to see what's going on with other people. And me being, TI first, you have all kinds of people issues and stuff. So that's always been like my focus, right? So it's like, I've always just wanted to understand other people better. So I'm not as like afraid of them, I guess, in some ways, or like it helps me be more comfortable in society. These systems for me, as far as knowing myself, like that hasn't been such an issue. Like maybe when I was younger, but like having your identity function first, you're not going to struggle with knowing who you are so bad, it's not even knowing who you are. It's just being comfortable with whatever it is that you are. And it's like, okay, I'm this to some people, I'm this to other people. It's like, I'm worried about that. Right. Did I actually answer the question? I think I did, right? It's for me to help me understand myself and other people. That's
So I would agree in general that it is there to help you understand yourselves and others, but I think I would even take it further to say that it's there to help us better communicate across, especially for me. What I see as like the biggest divide is not between sensors and intuitives. I think that's a pretty easy gap to overcome. I think that it's between the two opposing decider axes. So extroverted thinking and extroverted feeling. I have had so many issues in the past with people who are extroverted feeling, and you guys might think that I have strong extroverted feeling, and I can understand, I've been working on that a lot, especially in the last few years, but even with like INFJs or ENFJs and ISFJs, one of the biggest struggles for me is that I value extroverted thinking over extroverted feeling. And because of that, we approach problems differently, we approach communication differently, and it causes a lot of issues. And I think understanding personality and the system helps to bridge that gap and help us realize, okay, so this person here, they're an extroverted thinking lead. They're not emotional about what they're talking about. In fact, they probably don't even know that they have any emotion behind what they're saying. They're just saying, hey, this system sucks and we got to fix it. And then the extroverted feeler, on the other hand, they feel called out by that kind of behavior, and they need, to be coaxed a little bit before you're just like, that's wrong. Like if you tell someone with extroverted feeling that they're wrong, they're not going to want to listen to you because it's just doesn't work. But an extroverted thinker, they don't want all this like roundabout talk. They just want it direct. And so that kind of communication gap, I think, is the biggest thing that MBTI helps with, at least for me. And it's something that I want to see adopted by more people so that we can have better communication. Because like you were saying, if you could change one thing about society, it'd be communication. And I think that MBTI is one of the best ways to help with communication. And I've even seen practical application of it in my work. People who don't know anything about personality, I've used personality terms without using the cognitive functions. And helped people understand across that divide, like specifically an ENTJ and an ISFJ were working together, which was rough, but we got through it by realizing that, you know, there's that divide there in communication, and understanding why and where that's coming from helps to understand the other person better and increase communication and decrease negative emotional reaction.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like a lot of the typology stuff has helped me. With you damn FIT people. Like, it's the one I struggle with the most, man. Because like we just a lot just don't understand each other a lot, and we misinterpret each other's actions and everything, sometimes in a very negative way, and it just shuts down the connection, right? And so like this is like that's the part I'm always focused on, is like how do I like understand like FIT people, and how do I, because like what you said with the sensing and intuition, it's not hard to bridge that gap, especially I think having my observer functions in the middle, it's pretty easy to get along with whatever people who have a dominant observer function is pretty easy. But it's just those decider functions that are tough to, you know, and they have to do with your identity too, which makes it more personal.
Right.
Yeah.
Your self-identity and how you relate to the tribe are completely opposite. Dave and I have done a lot of talking, and we've realized so many differences just between our decider functions, like how we like to have problems approached, like the directions we like to approach. I think to simplify it as simply as we could, TIFE, don't question their intention, and FETI, don't question their logic. Or if you do, don't assume the intention and don't assume the logic. That was the answer. Yes.
So say one more time.
TIFE, don't assume their logic. FITE, don't assume their intention.
Okay. I'm gonna have to process that one.
Okay. We talked about it, but I'm really dumbing it down to like a simple sentence, so maybe it's not the best thing. But with all of that, you said we wanted to kind of describe how we saw I think it'd be good if we describe how we saw each other's type before we started talking and after we started talking, because we've got like 4 calls now or something like that.
Honestly, mine hasn't really changed. I know a lot of the ENFP, so it's not really, I don't think it's changed that much. The one I've always like had positive feelings for you guys too. So it's like, it's not like, oh, I talked to Michelle and you guys are actually pretty cool. Like, no, I always thought you guys were cool. So like, it hasn't changed. For me, like you guys are like probably for me, the most interesting type, or one of the most interesting. And you guys, in my head, you guys are like the cool ones, the cool guys, the ones making everyone laugh, the really creative guys, the ones who are coming up with awesome ideas. And like, it's just so much fun to hang around. Like, it can be really hard for an ISTP and ENFP to get along because you really do misinterpret each other a lot. So it really takes 2 like balanced individuals. But like if you guys can get past that and just realize that both of you are different and just assume like each other's like good intentions and stuff, then it works out. Like you have really good chemistry. You laugh about the same stuff. You're interested in making each other laugh a lot, and you're interested in sort of like gathering activities, even though you guys are doing NE instead of SE. There's still a lot of overlap, and there's still like they're just adventure buddies. That's the way I put it. Like if I'm going to go to a nightclub with any type, it's going to be an ENFP or anything like that. It's going to be you guys, right? So I've always thought you guys are great. My closest friend back home is an ENFP, and we definitely had our issues with like understanding each other. But man, we always had so much fun. Like it was just easy, Negatives, I wouldn't. Yeah, there are negatives. You guys can be a bit flighty sometimes. I would say a bit flaky. Canceling on stuff, not showing up.
I haven't done that.
Everything, like. But it's also it's not like offensive to me. Like it's always been kind of endearing in a lot of ways. So it never was like a big deal, I guess. And I don't know. You guys like are just off doing your own thing, and you kind of just have to let ENFPs do that. You can't try to like make them or get mad at them when they want to do their own thing. You just got to let them be that. You have to just unleash the ENFP, let them do their thing, because don't try to cage the bird there. That doesn't work. So, yeah, that's what I would say about you guys. So.
I haven't had quite the same level of interactions with ISTPs. You're not the first ISTP that I've ever talked to, but probably the first that I've had so much in-depth conversation with. Most of the time, I'm just not necessarily drawn to them as easily. Maybe I have more in my life that I just don't realize. It's very possible. But when I imagine an ISTP, I imagine a cop, like
a cop.
A cop, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like a stoic.
An IJ. Cop.
Huh?
Cop to me,
you think so?
An ICP would be a horrible police officer. Be like, hey, you guys just do what you want. You're not hurting me any, so I don't care.
Or maybe I mean detective.
Okay, I'll go with that. That's a cool
detective.
Stereotype, so yeah, I'll accept that.
That's a cool stereotype. But I just think of like someone who's stoic and doesn't really like express their emotion and like just I wouldn't imagine that you and it's funny because like this is all based on like stereotype without really knowing them, but I wouldn't imagine that they'd want a whole lot of new experiences, but I'm realizing more and more that that's definitely not the case. Like you guys are also perceivers, and as perceivers, like we like to have new stuff happen. We like to go out into the world and try new things. And so that's probably like the biggest thing that I've learned about ISTPs is that they're not maybe so fond of doing the same thing over and over as you might imagine. That's more like an ISTJ. The ISTP needs novelty in their life. They need to have new things come in and they need to have adventures. Oh, that's interesting. Mike said that lots of cops and military guys he knew were ISTPs too.
Okay. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I don't know. Sorry, Mike.
Leave it to him to question whether or not that information is good. Yeah, I think that if you want to have if you really want to develop your ability to break down a concept and recognize whether or not it's true and to really like question it, I think an ISTP is a really good person for that because they're going to want, like you said before, the grounding in reality is a really important thing for a good concept. So I think an ISTP is a really good person for making a concept a reality and making sure that it can be actualized, and making sure that you're not getting too far off the beaten path, so to speak. That you're not just like going too far roundabout.
Yeah, it's a good combo, right? Because like the ENFPs like have very good ability to envision stuff that people have not thought about before, right? Like they're very visionary in a way. Like they can really come up with some really unique stuff that ICPs can struggle with. You know, I mean, we have our creative side for sure, but it's more creative in the sensory, not creative sort of abstractly, if that makes sense, right? So like it's a good combo because the ENFP is able to generate so many awesome, cool sounding ideas, and the ICP is like, no, that one, you can't do this one. How would you do that? You know what I mean? So it's like it's a good combo, I think.
Yeah,
for the most part.
I think from our conversations, the thing that's been the biggest struggle for me is just in general, like being able to understand each other, because I'll say some things and you're like, wait. What are you talking about? Are you sure? Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Hold on, I need to think about it. Like those kind of statements happen a lot more with you than I have with other people. And this is probably why I don't have as many ISTP friends. Because
can I ask you a question? How do those make you feel? Are they annoying? Or because some people don't like that, right? A lot of people don't like that. And I don't even know that I'm doing it. I'm just trying to understand what you're saying.
You know, I think
second guessing it, you know what I mean?
Right. I think the younger me would have been really annoyed, but but as I get older, it's good. Like it's frustrating because I just want you to intuitively understand, like, because I don't have the TI backing necessarily for everything that I'm saying, and so it kind of like just like is knocking at my insecurity a little bit, and I'm like, okay, like I'm not making any sense. Like what I'm saying can't be factual. Like what am I doing? Like, do I even know what I'm trying to say? Like, is what I'm trying to say real? Like, it just makes me question everything that I've said when you say stuff like that.
Well, it's just like we assume that you do have that together. We're not realizing that you don't. Like we're projecting our own talents onto you, and we think, oh yeah, they already have it. Why would they say it if it wasn't logically figured out yet? So when we ask it, we assume that you already know. We don't realize it. Like, oh, like this is more from an intuitive thing. This isn't something that has been like extracted into the sensory where like it's going to be obvious to other people. Like it doesn't mean what you're saying is wrong. It just means it's not packaged in a way where it's like immediately intuitive for people who aren't on the same sort of wavelength, right? Did that make sense?
It did. Okay. It's just like for me, I just kind of, if something is said and, you know, I can't immediately negate what's being said, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Like my immediate reaction to most things is like, okay, that makes sense. I don't need to understand why it makes sense. It just makes sense. But I think it's good to expand and actually be able to back these kind of statements or feelings. Like, okay, so you have a feeling that it's accurate. Okay, what's a feeling that it's accurate if it's not actually accurate? Like, I catch myself saying stuff like that. I'm like, I'm annoying myself, so I can only imagine like how other people would be reacting to me saying everything makes sense when I couldn't break down why it makes sense.
Yeah. It's like I feel like it comes from the subconscious with you guys. Like it's deep in there, so it's not wrong necessarily. I mean, it could be wrong, I guess, but like it's not loaded in your conscious memory to where you can dissect it and see all the moving parts of it. You just know that it's true because it's coming from your FI, right? Yeah. And so yeah, I think people with TI need to learn that not everyone has everything TI, and a lot of that's coming from a deeper level. Whereas we're kind of figuring things out more in the conscious level, like with the. Does that make sense? So it's like it's easy for us to access that and explain it, whereas you guys, it's way deep down in there, and so it's hard to be like, well, I just know it's true. Okay, I can't like give you all the details right now, but you know. Yeah.
But I've been working on making it better, and having communications with people like you helps a lot because you do question what I'm saying, and you're like, wait a second, that doesn't make sense, and. And I have to, it makes me think more about what I'm going to say before I just say things, because I can't just be like, oh, blah, 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 and not have a single thought about whether what I've said is good or accurate or anything. I just keep going because I'm constantly like pinging those ideas and going further and further down a rabbit hole. And so it's good to have an ISTP be like, whoa, wait, let's stop this roll real fast. Like,
well, just always remember, it's always like we're just trying to figure out for us. We're not questioning we just want to understand it too. We want to see it from your point. But like you have to really break it down to us sometimes. If you don't immediately, if you're making a lot of jumps, sometimes we don't feel comfortable filling in those gaps when you make those jumps, and so you have to kind of explain. Otherwise, because we don't want to get it wrong. That's what it is. We don't want to. For you to say something that's a bit more abstract, we feel like we're gonna be using too much interpretation, and so we're not comfortable of our own understanding. That's why we're like probing you so we can understand it. But it's not like I think you're full of shit or something like that. Wait, can I cuss in here?
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. It might make me less money. I don't even know if I'll make money. We'll see.
Okay. Well, I hope you make money. Yeah, sorry. Well, this is the issue I get into is we're like, if I'm with an ENFP and he's like in a teaching position, like I'm learning like an instrument right now from a guy who I suspect is an ENFP, and I wonder if he like thinks that I think he's stupid, which I don't. Like I ask him stuff, and he's kind of like has this reaction like, "Why are you asking me that?" Like I don't know. I'm trying to understand this shit. You know what I mean? Like.
If it works, why question it? That's
it's happened a lot. I just feel this like I don't know, like negative, or I guess they just feel like they just don't like me, which is probably also inferior FE just being paranoid, I guess too. But it's also like, okay, where did we misunderstand each other here? I think they're misunderstanding my intentions, and I'm misunderstanding how they're treating me as well because they're not using FE, so I think they just don't like me, right? So I think you have to really give each other the benefit of the doubt. That's the biggest thing, I think. And then eventually the friendship develops to where you can trust each other and you know kind of where each other stand and you're okay.
Yeah. No, I think that understanding that helps a lot, especially if you are an ENFP. I feel like just in general, it wouldn't be the most like natural common friendship for ISTP and ENFP to be friends, just because communication is going to be really difficult. But if you can, I think, if you're really young, it could be easier because when you're really young, you don't have as many judgments and you don't really worry about things as much. And then if you're more mature and understanding, like the fact that you guys are different. Without MBTI involved, I mean, we're talking about people who want to understand how things work, and then people who want to make things work, which is similar, but it's not. And yeah, I'm not having a good time explaining what I'm trying to say. See, I know I'm questioning everything I say. But with that, let's go ahead and hop into our Q&A. I'm going to try to pull back up the first question that came through, and we're going to try to kind of try to answer relatively quickly so we can get through as many questions as we can, because we've already been going for an hour, and I don't really want to go too much further than an hour and a half. So this first question is from Hello There. They asked this way at the beginning of our stream, and they wanted to know, what are the best organization tips for ENFP from the ISTP?
Man, but that's going to be a tough one, because you guys, your organization comes more from like the sensory, right, with SI, which is not the way I do it.
So what do you mean by that?
So like when I organize stuff, I don't organize it like in a specific sensory way. Like I'm not going to arrange my closet by like colors. I'm going to arrange it by, this is category 1, this is category 2, this is category 3. Do you see what I mean? So it's like an abstract. So what I would tell you to do would probably be like, it probably wouldn't work that well for you, I would think. Like it's the best organizing tips. I'll try to give you an answer, but like I don't feel like confident in that I would give you a good one. I just know that you guys need to get on that SI, make your bed, get up at the, go to bed on time, get up at the right time. The stuff you don't want to hear, right?
Yeah. No, it is life-changing.
Make a to-do list, like that's, read Jordan Peterson's, like, I don't know how you guys feel about him. I have mixed feelings, but like his book though is basically for Demon SI, like his self-help books, because he's Demon SI, right? So like,
projection. We all project our demons
totally
according to the objective personality system, and I would highly agree. Speaking of OP, I don't know if I can find the question. If I do, I'll come back to it. But someone asked if we are both in the OP system and where's the best place to start. The short answer is I really like it, but I'm not taking the class at this time because I just don't have enough time to manage taking the class. But it is something I would like to do because I'm very interested with their system. So that's the short answer. And the best place to start looking, I would say, is probably their YouTube channel. But it can be a little bit difficult because especially their newer stuff is very
watch their old videos. Don't watch their new stuff. You're gonna be like, what the hell is this about? Because they're using so much terminology that you're not going to know, and they built on sort of the foundation. You have to go to the foundation. So don't watch the ones from 7 years ago. Watch the ones from 2 years ago. They started the new version. Yeah. So. Yeah,
watch the more recent old videos where they break down different types. They talk about what the animals are. Like, get yourself understanding of the actual terms, and then you can watch the new ones because the new ones are funny and they're very funny. They give good stuff. So Hello There asked another question, which is, what you think about the phrase "all truths are half truths"?
All truths are half truths. I don't know. I don't know what that phrase is supposed to mean, so I couldn't tell you. Like, I don't know what that person meant by that phrase, so I couldn't tell you whether I agree on it or not because I don't know what he meant by it. So,
what's your initial reaction to that question?
All truths are half truths. I guess it could do with perception, right? Like, what we perceive to be true may not necessarily be true because reality itself is not something we can look at directly. We always have to perceive it. And so the truth, we really have no idea what the truth of anything is, right? Because we can only perceive stuff. We can't see it exactly how it is. We have to perceive it through our senses, through our eyes and ears and whatever, and then our brain creates this sort of reality, right? But what is that based on? We have no idea. So the real truth, who knows what real truth is, right? Because we can't really know that, I guess. Maybe that's what I mean. I have no idea.
I personally believe there's no such thing as truth. I think that there is truth. My analogy is that truth is like an ocean where each individual drop has elements of truth. It's elements of the ocean, but it isn't the ultimate truth. And that analogy only goes so far because then you're like, okay, well, the ocean is the truth, but that's not necessarily true either. Because the ocean is made up of all these different parts, and not all the parts are true ocean. Okay, I'm done with that analogy. I'm not going to go any further.
I didn't make sense, so I get you.
Okay. Is it true that ISTPs have trouble with commitment?
Yeah, it's totally true. Yeah, we like so well. Yeah, because it's like, yeah, it takes away our freedom, and we're so scared to lose what we perceive to be as freedom, which isn't really usually that big of a deal. Like we just even little things like, if you're like in a relationship and your girlfriend wants you to always leave the toilet seat down, that feels restricting, man. I don't want to do that. I don't want to commit to that. Like, why are you trying to control me a little bit? Like, why do I have to do what you tell me to do? Yeah, it's true that we have trouble with commitment because we always want to leave things open for possibilities, just like you any folks, right? But once we do commit, though, we're pretty much in it. Like it's we don't commit easily, but when we do, I feel like it's we'll honor it because it's because it goes with our TI. Like we have to be authentic. We have to be we have to do what we say we're going to do, and so and I think part of it is like committing to stuff is hard because we know we're all in when we do commit, so we won't commit for just anything, right? So yeah, I'll say that.
Great answer. All right. So how does an ISTP, in this case, I don't know if you can speak for all ISTPs, but you can try value universal truth?
What is universal truth? That's my question.
I'm going to answer your question with a question. That's TI for you. If they don't understand your term.
I know for me, that's always like, I could interpret that in many ways. Like, universal truth, like a truth that's true in any like context. I mean, isn't a universal truth the same thing as truth? I would say is it really true if it's not true in every context? Like, I don't know. Maybe if they can expand on what universal truth means, then I could probably answer that better.
Okay, well, if you're still here, Tits McGee, you can elaborate. And I'm just gonna throw out there that if you are someone like me and you don't have TI, well, I have it. I just really don't have very much of it. Being around people who do have TI can be really helpful because they always want to define terms before they get into a conversation. TE is very opposed to defining terms because it's like it's self-evident what the term means, but it's not true. TI is proof that that's not true. So just define your terms if you want to have an argument with a TI user, or you are going to lose. Even if you're right, you're
misunderstood either one. Like that's the whole thing. We just don't want to misunderstand you. So like I think maybe with Demon and I, you look at the term, be like, okay, this can mean this, or this. Which one is it? I don't know which one you mean. So like, tell me, so I don't have to guess and then totally misunderstand what you're saying, right?
Yeah. I'm going to go over this comment just because this guy, Bruce Wayne, recently commented on one of my videos and says that he thinks I'm an ENFJ. I think that's a nice compliment because I have been working on my TI, so that means you think I have it. So even if it's weak, that makes me feel good. You also
you realize like that's the most like far away type from an ENFP almost. Like just because the letters are similar doesn't mean that like they're similar things.
Yeah. It would be nice to be an ENFJ, but alas. He also said I would never flake, and I'm pretty sure I flaked on us at least twice. So
yeah, well, like not all like it's anecdotes, right? Like not all ENFPs flake on stuff. Maybe at scale they're a bit more flaky, right? But it doesn't mean that you personally are a flaker.
I am flaky. Okay. It is. I am notoriously flaky to people that actually know me. I'm always like agreeing to do things that then I don't do. Because,
Yeah, you're making a lot of people angry with that. Maybe they're not saying anything.
Oh yeah. I've definitely alienated some friends because of this. Oh, there's that question. Are we both members of OP? They do explain all the dang symbols, masculine and feminine, and then the animals, which your animals are consume, right? Consume, play, blast, and then
sleep third.
Sleep, and then
blast is at the end.
Right, that's Benjamin that has that.
That has blast third, yeah. Well, he's debating. I think he thinks that he's consumed sleep. And anyway, that's a whole thing, but yeah.
Hello, Micro. He's one of my Patreons, so I'm giving him a little shout out there.
Hello.
All right. I'm trying to see. All the questions might now be down at the bottom. Okay. Did someone say something about a stepdad? Did you say something about a stepdad? That might not be a question for you. That might be a question in the chat.
Stepdad.
Okay, you didn't. Let's see. The questions at this point now will be live. So if you guys have questions, now is a great time to ask them. Because we are now done with all of the past questions. We're now ready for the live questions. We still have quite a little bit of time. It didn't take as long as I thought to go through. I thought there were more questions throughout. So Timmy asks, do you rely on MBTI for all areas of realization or decision making in your life? As in, oh man, I can't believe I handled that situation that well. Oh well, it was probably my SP or whatever.
Is this for both of us, or is
But
okay.
You can answer first.
I'll go first. Okay. No, I try not to, but it does leak in where it's just like, oh God, my demon in I is why I just, was a jerk to that person. Or like, or like you try to, like sometimes in conversation, I want to say like, oh, you are so bad at the sensory, like stuff that would make no sense to them. Like it's always like, it doesn't come out, but it almost comes out. Right. And I do find myself trying to almost explain everything with OP, and I have to stop myself from doing that because most things will not be explained by this, right? It helps you point you in the right direction, but it's not something we should base our decisions off of or the way we're going to truly understand the world. It should help guide you in the right direction, but it shouldn't control you like that, in OE terms. Yeah.
I think I do this probably a little bit more than I should.
Same here. Yeah.
I think it's hard not to, especially when you're learning something, to try to apply it in real life and try to bring it up in real life, especially something like MBTI that has so many real world applications. But the biggest thing for me is I try not to use it as an excuse, and I catch myself using it as an excuse quite a bit. And I try to stop myself when I do that. It's not always possible. But it is easy for MBTI to become an excuse, like, oh, like I can't do this because I'm NE. I'm never going to be able to figure out the SI or whatever. It's definitely possible to do that. And I've caught myself doing that. But it's really important to try to not, because like you said, MBTI really shouldn't be used for all decision making, because it's not a one thing fits all. So. Hello there asks, what question? What aspect do you admire in each other's respective types?
Just how lighthearted you guys are, I think, or ENFPs are. And just like some of the stuff that comes out of your guys' mouth is the most hilarious, like creative things like I've ever heard. And it's just, I don't know, it's just like it's easy to be around you guys. It's always fun. It's never too serious or anything like that. I would say that's the biggest one.
I would say that it's like the grounding in reality that you guys have and the ability to like truly understand things. It's really admirable, because I wish I could be more like that sometimes. Because I'm just off in La La Land. Okay, Cedric asks, can you change which type you appear to be if you change your values in a significant way? This is, like, I think one of the ultimate questions of the MBTI community.
Can you change your type? Well, I don't really, I'm not an FI person, so like the values thing doesn't, can I pretend to be like wait, let me read this again. Can you change which type you appear to be if you change your values and stuff? So like if you change your identity in a certain way, then you would appear to be like a different type, possibly, right? Yeah, you can appear to be any type and not be that type, I think. I think that's really easy because a lot of people are basing a type on anecdotes or like, oh, this dude's really outgoing. He's obviously an EP, like things like that. So you can appear to be any type. And yeah, if you like change your habits and the stuff you listen to on a daily basis or whatever, you can totally appear to be a different type. But the internals, I think, will always be the same. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, I think that it's like you said, it's really easy to appear as a different type. And I think even mentally, you can think that you are using different functions. You can actually be using different functions because we all use all 8. it's not like you're always ENFP, which means you always use it in the order of MBTI, NEFITESI. Like that doesn't happen. You move around and you can switch, and there's actually whole entire theories that go about different ways that you can project your image out that change. I think that fundamentally what's the most easy for you is your natural type, and then the other things that come out are how you're changing yourself to be perceived differently, which the perception is a lot easier to control than how your mind is actually thinking. And in my opinion, you can make yourself appear much more different than you actually can change yourself internally. But again, you can change yourself to some degree, but I don't think you can. I don't know. This is a I don't know if I want to throw out that you can't change yourself fundamentally, because it could be possible to have a 180 in who you are and just change yourself. I just think that would be really, 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 really difficult. Even without personality, I think that'd just be really difficult to fundamentally change who you are. Oh man, this next question. What do you two think about metaphysics?
I don't really know much about metaphysics, right? It seems interesting. I think the one bit I did hear, and maybe you guys can fact check me on this because I don't know if this is true, but with metaphysics, it's different where it's not like they're not able to observe metaphysics in reality, right? Like they've just come up with the math that explains these phenomenon, and the math's able to check out somehow, but they're not able to actually experience it in like a physical way. That's like the only, like I know that one sentence, and I haven't really gotten into it, so that's all I got.
I think that metaphysics is interesting. Like the biggest question that comes up for me when I think metaphysics is there an existence of a soul, and does that have any impact on how we relate with the world? And that's something that I think about a lot. I personally believe there is a soul, but I made a whole video about do souls exist. So if you really want to know what I think about metaphysics, me and my friend Jeffrey, who's an ENTP, we had a whole conversation where we're just bouncing NE off each other like crazy, talking about metaphysics. So that'll be.
Are metaphysics like explaining spiritual phenomena and that kind of stuff as well?
Well, I Googled it just to make sure I knew exactly what I was talking about. Let me pull up the exact definition. It basically, metaphysics. It is the branch of philosophy that examines the fundamental nature of reality, including the relationship between mind and matter.
Oh shit, I'm thinking of quantum physics, I think.
Oh.
That's why I'm okay, I was like, wait, what?
I don't know if I
don't know anything about so like remove that answer. I saw metaphysics and thought quantum physics. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's like more like NF stuff that I haven't really gotten into. So I don't know. Sorry, I didn't.
It's okay. I Googled it, so I cheated. I used Google. I'm like, okay. Let me double check I know what we're talking about. Okay. How often do you notice when someone is within the perceptive of a function when talking to them?
Often you notice when someone is within the perspective. Like if somebody's talking, you can see that they're using this function. Like which functions they're using, whether they're talking to you or where the perspective comes from. Like oh, this is such an FE perspective.
I think that's what he means, or
yeah.
they mean.
Yeah. I think now quite a bit because I'm like kind of looking for it, right? Like when I meet people, I'm trying to like figure out, I guess, what their type is. It's like I don't know. It's like I guess it's fun and it's good to know just because you know kind of how to dance with them, I guess, right? Like so like how often do I notice that? Can I just put a number like 55? That's how often I notice it. I half the time, I guess, maybe like just here and there. Usually if I talk to someone for I'll say more than an hour, I'll feel like I'll see some functions, but I won't be like necessarily sure because it's only an hour, but I feel like, oh, that's like, wow, that's like really unique what that person said. So here and there, I don't know. Yeah.
I think I really only do that if it's incredibly obvious, because I even still have trouble telling the difference between functions sometimes, because similar functions can come off externally very similarly. Like SI and NI can appear very similar because they have a similar process. NE and SE can come off similarly. TE, FE can come off similarly, even though what I said earlier, like they have very huge divides in communication, they can still appear similar. I think that I really only think about it when it's very obvious and blaring in my face, like this ESTJ that I work with. So much TESI, like this is how the system works, and let me tell you all about it. And you're just like, okay, cool. But only really when it's like extra obvious. Otherwise, it's really hard for me to tell. That's just personally, I'm not very good at typing people. It's not a strength of mine. I try to type people so I can develop my ability to recognize the functions. But I wouldn't say I do it all the time. This is a throwaway question, but okay. Which came first, the Eggin or the Chegg? I don't even know what that means.
Well, the Eggin or the Chegg? Well, I don't know. I feel like the Chegg was already like an evolved species, and so the next evolution of that species has to be the Eggin. So naturally, the Eggin would be the thing that comes after the Chegg, because the Chegg was already there in the first place. The Eggin is an extension of the Chegg. That's what I would say.
You know more than I do.
I have no idea what that means. I don't know.
All right, we're going to answer a couple of more questions, and then we're going to, I think we're getting towards the end of the questions as well. But Ian asks, do you find it easy or hard to recognize and adjust to somebody else's communication style? Do you actively ever try to adjust your communication style, or do you prefer to be authentic to yourself?
Do I find it easy? Wouldn't say I find it difficult, but not easy either. It's somewhere in between. I guess to recognize, I don't think that's so difficult. To adjust to it, yeah, well, it depends on what their communication style is. Some are harder to adjust to than others. But yeah, I definitely try to adjust to it. I feel like I'm not changing myself, but I'm using a subset of what myself is as a whole, and I'm just using the parts of me that will go well with them, and kind of putting the parts that will conflict kind of on the back, and just sort of exposing. Like, there's some people you really have to FE pretty hard with, because they're like more sensitive people. You kind of really have to make it obvious to them a lot of times, and some people get annoyed by FE, and you have to realize that one's harder for me to adjust to. And there's some people that don't really like. It's probably FI people, right? Like I have to learn, because to me, it's hard to identify with that or relate to that, not really being sort of encroached upon by FE, right? So I have to tone that down a bit. But yeah, I wouldn't say I'm changing myself. I'm just using different tools instead of the other tools I use.
Myself personally, it depends on their communication style, how excessive they are into it. Some people are, like I said, a lot more obvious than other people. It's the obvious people that I think I'm more likely to try to adjust myself for, especially if they're the opposing communication style. I will try to adapt how I'm speaking to try to accommodate to what they prefer. And to me, that is me being authentic, is by adapting to them, because what I ultimately want is better communication. So if I have to adjust how I am communicating, that doesn't really change who I am authentically. That just changes how I express it to this person so they can understand me better. So I don't think it affects my being authentic at all. I mean, if I had to be around a bunch of TI people for like 20 days and like I didn't have anybody around me who was the same judgment axis, and they were all like INTPs, ISTPs, yeah, maybe like I would be tired afterwards. I would feel like I just need to talk to somebody.
So many TI questions. Oh, yeah.
My brain might hurt, but I'd get over it. The title of the soul video, hello there, is just do souls exist? You just search do souls exist, and Heart of Michi, and you'll probably find it. how do you think your communication styles differ if you have a differing opinion as an ENFP versus an ISTP? I think we kind of covered that, don't you think? I just try to appeal more to logic. I try to think things through a little bit more when I'm talking to an ISTP or an INTP. And while we're talking, I try to figure out, how I can logically piece something together a little bit more than I maybe would with, not an ISTP.
How do you think your conversation styles differ if you have different opinions? Yeah, and it's hard to explain. I think like you kind of feel it. You feel like there's a miscommunication, but you don't really know why, because you can't really, or at least I can't really put myself in the FI sort of place. So I can't I know something's up, but I don't know exactly what. But there's but how did the conversation? Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I feel like, well, if we're not talking about cognitive functions related stuff, I think the conversation styles are not that different when it comes to what we're conversating about. At least usually it's over. I think we like a lot of the same topics usually, ENFPs and ISTPs, and I think we're generally comfortable with very abstract stuff, even though that's not the stereotype for ISTPs, but we like talking about stuff like that. We like talking about ideas. We like making each other laugh, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that.
Yeah, that's a hard question.
Yeah.
I thought I saw. Oh, I just really liked this comment right here that Jess put out. Which was in response to an earlier question, the one before last that we were answering, which is changing and adjusting to someone else's communication style, like how she put it. You have to translate it to your authentic self. It's like putting your words in Spanish or italics or whatever else. I really like that analogy.
It's really accurate.
That's a very good analogy. Yeah, Cedric put out something that this is very similar to me. He says sometimes he adapts his speech so that others will keep talking to him more so he can learn more about them. I do that exact same thing. So with that, are there any other questions? If not, we might wrap up. We had a rough start, let me just say, 45 minutes of trying to figure out this streaming thing.
Yeah, I mean, we're worked out, and this version went much better. The intro went better. Obviously,
agreed.
Yeah, the last one was. Yeah, it was. But now we know. Now we know that there's a StreamYard. Thanks to Benjamin, and it's just so much easier, and it just does it for you. So yeah, if you guys ever want to stream an interview on YouTube, just use StreamYard. That's it makes it easy. So. I'm not paid by them, by the way. I just very happy with paid by them.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be using it more. I really like the setup. Well, I mean, depending on how many live videos I make, I don't really make a whole lot anymore. But I like the side by side, and I really like being able to highlight people's
that's so cool. That's such a good
questions and comments. Yeah. But I mean, I guess with that, I want to thank Dave. Thank you so much for being here on my channel and coming to express yourself. I don't know about all of the people who follow my channel, but I know myself personally, I didn't really know much about ISTPs before we started talking. I mean, I knew conceptually about them, but it's like you said, the concept isn't good until it's applicable in reality. Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to learn more about you, and I'm really grateful that you were able to come onto my channel and share yourself with us. And everyone who is here watching, thanks for sticking around so long. Go ahead and put your thoughts down below in the comments, because I'm sure you're going to be watching this after. If you sit through an hour and 20 minutes of the video when it's not live, more power to you. Go ahead and comment bananas so that I know you made it all the way to the end. But thanks everyone else for coming in. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. I hope that it was illuminating, and I hope now you realize that there's maybe not as many differences between our two types as people might think. We do obviously approach things very differently, but we do have the potential to really get along and really have good conversation, even if it might not seem that way if you're just learning about MBTI, or even if you're an MBTI nerd and you're like, wow, okay, these doesn't make sense. My brain can't manage it. It makes more sense than you would think. So, do you have any final closing words?
Yeah. Thanks back to you for this has been such a cool project. So thank you for working with me and us working together. And I had a lot of fun, and it was really cool learning about you and more about your type, and then doing this live video. The whole process has been great. I hope we can do another one in the future. Maybe we'll come up with another idea or something. But yeah, this has been a great process. Thank you so much for all the work you put in, and thanks to everyone that came and watched. It's good to have your support and your questions and everything. Yeah, it was really great.
Yes, it was very nice that the stream is now working and we were able to see your questions in relatively real time. I think it's pretty close to real time with this service at least. So thank you guys so much for sticking around. Again, if you made it this long, comment bananas down below. And go ahead and like and subscribe and check out Dave's channel. I posted a link down below. He's got a podcast going. It's really interesting. He has an INFJ who's actually a jumper type. So he's NITI, so it's a really interesting conversation if you guys want to check that out. I put the link to his channel down below. And I just hope you guys have a beautiful, amazing, fantastic day. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.